Hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Sit down, please. I'd like to speak English today too, to improve my speaking skill. Let's get it started. Today, it is December 13th, 2022. It's on Tuesday today, and it's sunny outside. How are you spending Tuesday? After few years of claim, he was finally released. He had kept protesting his innocence until he was released. He protested his innocence. 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 He kept protesting 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 his innocence. The student protested his innocence for explaining the reason why he was late for the school convincingly with evidence. The student tried to protest his innocence for being late for school. Did you even try to protest your innocence? You should protest your innocence if it was not true. If it is not true, you should protest your innocence. If it is not your fault, you should protest your innocence. If it is not your fault, you should protest your innocence. You should protest your innocence. You should protest your innocence. If it is not your fault, you should protest your innocence. Did you protest your innocence? Because it was not your fault. Did you protest your innocence? If I had involved in that incident, I would have protested my innocence. I would have protested my innocence. If I had been involved in that incident, I would have protested my innocence. 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 He cannot be He cannot be innocent. He cannot be innocent. He is definitely involved in the incident. He cannot be innocent. He definitely engaged in the criminal activity. Kids are usually innocent. How did it go? How did the judge go? How did the court go? How did the court go? How did the lawsuit go? Did he find innocent? Did he find innocent? Was he found innocent? Was he found innocent? Was he found innocent? Was he found innocent? The judge found him innocent. The judge found him innocent. The judge ruled him as innocent. The judge found him guilty. The judge found him innocent. Do not assault others. Do not assault others. Do not assault others, okay? Do not assault others. Do not assault others. Do not assault others. Have you assaulted somebody? Have you assaulted somebody? Have you assaulted somebody? Some people resort to violence and assault others when they are angry. Some people resort to violence and assault somebody. Some people tend to assault others by resorting to violence when they get angry. And some people tend to resort to violence when they get angry and assault others. Some people are inclined to resort to violence when they get angry and assault others. Do not assault others. Do not assault others. Do not assault others. Do not assault others. The region was assaulted. The region was assaulted. The district was assaulted dreadfully. The region was assaulted dreadfully. Do not make an assault on others. Do not make an assault on others. Do not make an assault on others, okay? The student was making an assault on the other, so the teacher intervened in to stop it. I used to be made an assault on by somebody. Have you ever made an assault on others? Have you ever made an assault on? Have you been made an assault on? Have you been made an assault on? Made an assault on. Do not make an assault on others. Do not make an assault on others. Make an assault on others. Do not make an assault on others. Some people are apt to make an assault on desk when they get angry. Some people tend to make an assault on objects to release their stresses when they get angry. Some people tend to make an assault on objects, for example, slamming the door, hitting the desk, and so on. Some people are apt to make an assault on objects. Some people make an assault on objects. The victim said he had been made an assault on by the wild animal. The victim said he had been made an assault on by wild animal. The victim was made an assault on by the animal, by wild animal. The victim said he had been made an assault on by wild animal. Making an assault on others is illegal. Making an assault on others is illegal. Do not make an assault on others. Do not make an assault on others. Even if it is someone else, others' responsibility. Do not make an assault on others. Even when you are angry, do not make an assault on others. Even when you are angry, do not make an assault on others. Do not make an assault on others. Could you put an end to the task by Friday? Can you put an end to the task by Friday? Let's bring the task to an end. Let's bring the task to an end by Friday and have a good weekend as usual. We might be unpopular with time. Very popular, even very popular celebrities might become unpopular with time. Nobody will be popular forever. Who concluded the ruling? Who ruled? The judge ruled that the accusant was responsible for that. The judge ruled that the accused had to pay the fines. What do you think of the ruling made by the judge? What do you think of the ruling made by the judge? What do you think of the ruling made by the judge? Ruling. 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 Who concluded the ruling? Who concluded the ruling? Who concluded the ruling? Who concluded the ruling? Who made the ruling? Who concluded 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 the ruling? Ruling. Everybody was surprised at the ruling made by the teacher. Many citizens were astonished by the ruling made by the governor. Ruling. The judge ruled that the accused had to compensate for what he had done. The judge ruled that the accused was responsible for what he had done. The judge ruled that the accused was responsible for that. Ruling. 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 What do you think of the ruling? Notorious ruling. Ruling. Unfair ruling. Ridiculous ruling. Incredible ruling. Ruling. During the ruling of the newly appointed CEO, the company recovered a lot. Since the ruling of the newly appointed CEO, the company is going well. ruling, ruling. Many citizens protested the ruling. Many citizens are not satisfied with the ruling. Many citizens are complaining about the ruling. Many people are unsatisfied with the ruling. I used to be bullied. I used to be bullied. I used to be bullied to do what they wanted to do, what wanted me to do. I used to be bullied to do what they wanted me to do. I used to be bullied to do what they wanted me to do. I used to be bullied into doing what they wanted me to do. I was bullied to do what they wanted me to do. I was bullied to do what they wanted me to do. I was bullied to do what they wanted me to do. I was bullied to do what they wanted me to do. Have you ever bullied? Have you ever been bullied? I used to be bullied. Have you ever been bullied? Or have you ever bullied somebody? Do not bully anybody. Do not bully. Do not bully. Do not bully everybody. Others. Do not bully others. Do not bully others. Do not bully others. Do not bully. Do not bully. Do not bully. Do not bully others. Do not bully. The scammer bullied the old lady into contracting the fraudulent scam. The salesperson bullied the old lady into contracting the scam. My parent bullied me into studying because I was getting bad score. My parent used to bully me into studying. My parent bullied me into studying. My parent bullied me into studying. My parent bullied me to studying. I was bullied into studying by my parent. I was bullied into studying by my parent. I was bullied into studying by my parent. I was bullied. I was bullied into studying by my parent. I was bullied. I was bullied into studying by my parent. Kids might be bullied into studying by their parent. The old lady was bullied into contract a scam. The old lady was bullied into contracting the scam, but it was escaped. The old lady was bullied into contracting the scam, but it was escaped. I was bullied into drinking alcoholic beverage beyond my limitation, which is horrible, dreadful, isn't it? Do not bully others into doing something. Do not bully others into doing what you want them to do. Do not bully others into doing what you want them to do. Do not bully others into doing what you want he or she, what you want him or her to do. Do not bully others into doing what you want them to do. Do not bully others into doing what you would like her or him to do. The boss bullied me into working overtime by gesture. Tone of voice. The car running behind me bullied me into driving faster, although I was driving within low speed limited by the law. The speed limited by the law. The car running behind me bullied me into driving my car faster, although I was driving within the speed limited by the law. Have you ever bullied? Have you ever bullied? Have you ever bullied? Have you ever bullied? Bullying is not good. I hope bullying will be disappear. I hope bullying will be eradicated. I hope bully will not exist here in the world. Have you ever bullied? Have you had the experience of bully? Bully. Do not bully. Do not bully others. Do not bully. Do not bully. Some people tend to bully, especially weaker ones. You do not bully. Why is there a bully? Why is there a bully? I hope the number of bullies will be 0. I hope the number of bullies will be 0. I hope the number of bullies will be 0. Bullies usually engage in weaker ones than them. They cannot confront the stronger ones. Have you ever been a bully? I used to be bullied by the bully. I used to be bullied by the bully. I used to be bullied by the bully. Do not be a bully. Do not become 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 a bully. I'd like to see your reaction when you eat umeboshi, Japanese plum. I like to see the reaction, the first reaction, when they eat the Japanese food, Japanese unique food, such as umeboshi, natto, shigekix, and so on. I was expecting positive reaction from the customers. We are expecting positive reaction from customers. We are expecting positive reactions. We are getting positive reaction from the customers about the product. In the market, in the market investigation, and about 90% of the customers, passers-by, showed positive reactions to the new products. According to the market inspection, market investigation, about 90% of the pedestrians reacted well positively, showed positive reactions. Do you react to the difference quickly? If something changes, do you react? Do you notice immediately? When I talked to the deer in English, she reacted. He or she reacted. When I asked my mother if she wanted to go to a restaurant, she reacted, although she never reacted when I asked something else. When I asked if my friend wanted to go to a restaurant, he reacted so soon, immediately, although he never reacts when I ask something other. Sorry, it was my sheer fault. What you said is a sheer lie. We were surprised at the sheer amount of food served in the restaurant. I was astonished by the sheer amount of food served in the restaurant. What he said is a sheer lie. 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 It was a sheer lie. What you said is a sheer lie. What you said is a sheer lie. Sheer lie. sheer ascent, sheer ascent. Most of the investors were surprised at the sheer ascent of the stock prices. Stock prices can have sheer ascent. Stock prices can have sheer ascent, sheer ascent, sheer ascent of the improvement, sheer ascent of the improvement, sheer ascent of something, something. Sheer ascent of stock prices can happen. Sheer drop of stock prices also can happen. A sheer ascent of the stock prices can also happen. Both sheer ascent and drop can happen when it comes to stock prices. Not only stock price, but also other things can have both sharp ascent and drop, fall. I was disappointed at sheer lie of yours. All of the customers are astonished by the tremendous size of the hamburger in this restaurant. All of the diners, are surprised at the sheer size of the hamburger served in this restaurant. Sheer ascent, sheer fall, sheer amount of hamburger, sheer length of the queue, sheer waiting time at the attraction, sheer length of the queue. Soon after I looked at the sheer length of the queue, I gave up. I gave up eating at the restaurant. Soon after looking at the sheer length of the queue, I gave up eating at the restaurant. The fans were excited to see the sheer power of the boxer. The fans were excited to see the sheer power of the boxer. I'm sure that many tourists will be surprised at the sheer design of the buildings, skyscrapers, in Tokyo. I think many tourists will be astonished by the sheer design of the buildings, skyscrapers in Tokyo. Some people can eat sheer amount of food. Some people can eat sheer amount of food. An anonymous man professed the sheer ascent of the stock price on the next day. How can you anticipate the sheer ascent? The ascent power, natural power. The sheer natural power. The sheer natural power. The sheer natural power. Sheer natural power. Sorry, I forgot. I sheer forgot the promise. Let me compensate for that. Let me make up for that. The water splashing up sheer vertically. The water splashing out vertically. Sheer. I could not sheer understand what the professor was saying, explaining. I couldn't next to understand. I could next to nothing. I could next to nothing. I could know next to nothing. I know next to nothing about physics. I cannot make heads or tails of the equation sheer. I cannot make heads or tails of the equation of the relativity. We didn't have snow sheer. We didn't have sheer snow last year. One thing that my father can be honorable is that he never read the book, although he paid sheer amount of money to buy. Some people never read a book. Some people don't read a book sheer. Some people don't read a book. Some people don't read a book. Some people don't read a book sheer. I cannot understand what you are thinking about. I cannot understand what you are thinking about. I cannot predict what you are going to do next. I cannot predict what will happen in the future. I cannot predict what you are going to do next. What you are going to do next. The water was splashing up sheer. Nobody backed me up at the time sheer. Nobody backed me up sheer at that time. Nobody backed me up. Nobody sheer backed me up. Some students take on the examination without preparation sheer. Some people never prepare for examinations. Some students take on the examinations without preparing sheer. Some students take on the examinations without preparing sheer. Can you hide your rage? Rage is difficult to hide. It will appear on the expression on our face. The rage will appear on our face, so very difficult. Rage is very difficult to hide. How do you hide your rage? The rage of the boss was obvious from her attitude and the expression on his face. Some people hit the desk with rage. Some people hit the desk with rage. Some people hit the object in a rage. Some people hit the desk in a rage. Some people hit object in a rage. Some people hit blast objects in a rage. Some people hit the desk in a rage. Some people hit the desk in a rage. Some people hit the desk in a rage. Some people resort to violence in a rage. Some people resort to violence in a rage. Our boss flew to rage. The snoring sound never fails to get on my nerves. Snoring sound never fails to get on my nerves. Snoring sound never fails to get on my nerves. The blockages on the road were in the pedestrian's way, in the commuter's way. Don't get in my way. Don't get in my way. The blockages and garbages on the road were in the commuter's way, in the way of the pedestrians, in the way of commuters, in the commuter's way, in commuter's way, in the way of commuters. The blockages on the road were in the way of the commuters, in the way of commuters. The car stopped in the middle of the expressway was in the way of the commuters, drivers. All of the car drivers raced at the car stopping in the middle of the expressway for calling. What makes you rage? What makes you rage? Are you easy to rage? Do you easy to rage? Do you easy to rage? Are you easy to rage? Are you easy to rage? Are you easy to rage? Some people are easy to rage. 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 Nobody can convince her to stop pursuing her dream. Do not convince your kids not to pursue their dreams. All of the employees convinced the employee to stop resigning because he was indispensable. All of the employees stopped him from resigning because he was indispensable. All of the employees convinced him not to resign. All of the employees convinced him not to resign because he was indispensable. At that time, all of the fans convinced that the champion would win. At that time, all of the fans were convinced that the champion would win, but it was overthrown. The prediction was overturned. The parent convinced her child to do with what he currently had. The parent convinced her child to be satisfied with what he currently had. The parent convinced her child to be satisfied with what he currently had. I convinced my friend to go to the party with me. I convinced my parent to allow me to study abroad. I convinced my parent to allow me to study abroad. I convinced my parent to allow me to study abroad. I convinced my parent to buy me the video game in return for studying a lot. I convinced my parent to buy me video games in return for me studying a lot. I convinced my parent to buy me video games in return for me studying a lot and getting good score on tests. Everybody was convinced that the champion would win. How can I am not convinced that the stock price will increase in the near future. I tried to convince my coworker to stop resigning, but he was determined and he quit it. He quit. Nobody can convince me to stop my career. No one can convince me to stop my dreams. Nobody can convince me to stop my hobby. No one can convince me to stop my dreams. Do not convince your children to stop pursuing what they want to do. Nobody can convince me to stop doing what I like. Nobody can stop me from doing what I like. Nobody can stop me from doing what I like. Nobody can stop me from doing what I like. Nobody can keep me from doing what I like. Nobody can prevent me from doing what I like. Nobody can convince me to stop doing what I am interested in. I am convinced that your business will succeed. I am confident that your business will succeed. I am sure that your business will succeed. I am certain that your business will succeed. Could you help me? Could you help me convince her to stop the bad habit? Could you help me convince her to stop the bad habit? Could you help me to stop? Could you help me convince her? Could you help me convince her? Could you help me convince her to stop the bad habit? Could you help me to convince her to stop the bad habit? Could you help me convince her to stop the bad habit? I convinced her to stop the bad habit, but she didn't listen to me. I am a convinced happy learner. A convinced believer. A convinced believer. A convinced believer. A convinced studier. A convinced employee for the company. A convinced employee for the company. A convinced servant to the society. A convinced believer. A convinced person to everything. Are you convinced? Are you a convinced person? Convinced. Convinced. A convinced believer. A convinced person. I'm convinced. I'm already convinced. I'm convinced that your business will succeed. I am already convinced that I will succeed in the examination. I am gathering information to show convincing explanation. I am gathering information to make a convincing explanation. I am gathering explanation in order to make a convincing explanation, convincing speech, explanation, description. I am gathering some information so as to make a convincing explanation in front of the boss, so that my idea and plan will be passed into law, put into effect, so that my ideas will be put into effect. So that my ideas will be put into effect. I am gathering some information to make a convincing explanation of my plan, so that my plan will be put into effect, so that my ideas will be put into effect, so that my ideas will be put into effect. Convincing. I'm trying to have a convincing case. With a convincing case. I'd like to explain with a convincing case. A convincing case, 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 a convincing case. My eloquent speech was lost to even more convincing one. My eloquent speech was lost to him with even more convincing speech. My convincing speech was lost, even more convincing speech by him, by the opponent. A convincing case. The convincing case made us believe the scam. The convincing case from the scammer made the victims believe. The convincing case made the victims believe. The convincing case by the scammer made the victims believe the sheer ascent of the stock prices. The convincing case by the scammer made the victims believe the sheer ascent of the stock prices in the near future, although there was no assurance for that. A convincing case. The convincing case by the scammers made the victims believe the sheer ascent of the stock prices. The convincing case by the scammer made the victims believe the sheer ascent of stock prices. I'm not good at making a convincing speech, convincing case, convincing speech, convincing explanation. I am very bad at making a convincing speech, eloquent speech, convincing eloquent speech. I am bad at convincing speech. I am bad at making a 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 convincing speech. Convincing speech. Convincing. A convincing case. 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 Convincing case. I try to make a convincing case. I try to make a convincing case. I try to make a convincing case. To make it believed. I'm trying to make a convincing case. The victim made a convincing case in the incident. A convincing case. Can you make a convincing case? I'm bad at making a convincing case. I'm bad at making a convincing case. Are you good at making a convincing case? Are you good at making a convincing case? I am bad at making a convincing case. I am bad at making a convincing case. 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 Convincing case. A convincing case. A convincing case. The scammer made a convincing case to make the victims believe. Convincing case. A 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 convincing case. The convincing case by the scammer made many victims believe the rise of the stock prices. Eloquent, convincing speech. I'm not good at making a convincing and eloquent speech. I am not good at making a convincing case. Convincing case. A 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 convincing case. The convincing case made by the victim helped the police officers to search for the criminal. The convincing case made by the scammer made many victims believe the fraudulent scheme. I am not good at making a convincing case. Convincing case. I am not good at making a convincing case. I am not good at making a convincing case. 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 I am not good at making a convincing case. I am not good at making a convincing case. Are you good at making a convincing speech? Convincing case. Are you good at making a convincing speech? Are you good at making a convincing case? A convincing case. A convincing case. A convincing case. The convincing case made by the scammer made many victims believe the fraudulent scheme. The convincing case made by the scammer made many victims believe the fraudulent scheme. I try to explain the reason convincingly. Without evidence, we cannot explain convincingly. Without information and evidence, we cannot explain it convincingly. We are gathering some information so that we can explain it convincingly. We have failed to explain the reason convincingly. If we fail to explain it convincingly, the product cannot be sold well. The salesperson was demonstrating convincingly. The salesperson was explaining the good feature of the product convincingly. 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 The salesperson is explaining the good feature of the product convincingly, so that in hopes of the good sales, in hopes of the good sale, in hopes that the product will be sold well. The salesperson was explaining the good feature of the product convincingly, in hopes that the product would sell well. In hopes that the product would sell well. In hopes that the product would sell well. The salesperson was explaining the good feature of the product convincingly with a demonstration, in hopes that the product would be sold well. Convincingly. I sometimes have a dreadful nightmare. Do you? Do you too? Do you also sometimes have a dreadful nightmare? Do you also sometimes have a dreadful nightmare? Do you also sometimes have a dreadful nightmare? The snoring sound of my friend last night was dreadful. I could hardly sleep. I could hardly sleep. I could scarcely sleep. Dreadful. The service I got at the hotel was dreadful. The attitude of the hotel staff at the reception was dreadful. I will not forget it. Except for the dreadful weather, our trip to Hokkaido was very good. Except for the dreadful weather, one of the days of our trip, our trip to Hokkaido was good. Except for the dreadful weather of one of the dates in our trip was good. Except for the dreadful weather of one of the days in our trip to Okinawa was good. Except for the dreadful weather of one of the days in our trip, it was good. Dreadful weather. We want to avoid dreadful weather. It is worst when we come into dreadful weather while sightseeing. I think many of us plan our trip 1 month or 2 months before our departure, so it is worst when we run into dreadful weather while sightseeing. I hope my trip days will not run into dreadful weather, come across dreadful weather, fall into dreadful weather, in accordance with dreadful weather. I hope my trip days will not be the same days as dreadful weather. Dreadful. I hope my trip days will not fall into the dreadful weather. Dreadful. I sometimes have a dreadful nightmare. I sometimes have a dreadful nightmare. Dreadful. Dreadful weather. Many things were devastated after the typhoon dreadfully. Many objects were thrown away by the typhoon dreadfully. Many things were thrown away. Blown away. Many things were blown away by the typhoon dreadfully. Dreadfully. The landscape today looks strange dreadfully. The attitude of our boss is strange dreadfully. The attitude of our boss is strange today dreadfully. The attitude of our boss is very different from what he used to be. Dreadfully, 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 dreadfully. The decoration was completed dreadfully by the company. The cuisine was decorated and arranged dreadfully by the amateur. The cuisine was cooked dreadfully. The cuisine was dreadfully cooked. The cuisine was dreadfully cooked by the beginner. Dreadfully. The typhoon blew away many objects dreadfully. The typhoon blew away many objects outside dreadfully. The typhoon blew away many things outside dreadfully. Dreadfully, 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 dreadfully. The typhoon blew away many things dreadfully. The typhoon blew away many things dreadfully. The cuisine was arranged dreadfully. The task was completed dreadfully. Roughly, dreadfully, roughly, dreadfully. The landscape is strange dreadfully. The cloud looks strange dreadfully. The clouds look strange dreadfully. The clouds today look different, so different. Dreadfully, dreadfully, dreadfully. Some people know many things dreadfully. Some genius people know many things and can think very, very deeply, dreadfully. Some people can come up with a good idea dreadfully. Some people can concentrate on something dreadfully. Some people are sometimes sweet dreadfully. The arrogant boss is very sweet today, dreadfully. The obstinate boss is very sweet and kind today, dreadfully. The usual arrogant boss is dreadfully sweet and kind today. Dreadfully. 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 Our arrogant boss is very kind, dreadfully. Our arrogant boss is dreadfully kind today. The restaurant, always packed with customers, is vacant dreadfully today. The tourist spot, always crowded with tourists, were very vacant dreadfully soon after the pandemic. The tourist spots, always crowded with tourists, were very spacious and vacant dreadfully. So far, my business is going well. So far, I haven't got any profit. So far, I haven't made a profit from my business. So far, I haven't made any profit from my business. So far, I haven't made a profit from my business. So far, I haven't made any profit from my business, but I hope someday I will. Thus far, I haven't made any profit from my business. Thus far, I haven't made any profit from my business. Thus far, I haven't made any profit from my business. Thus far, I haven't made any profit from my business yet. I've yet to make any profit yet from my business. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit. I've yet to make any profit. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit. Thus far, I've yet to make up any profit. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit from my business. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit from my business, but I hope I will be able to get profit from my business someday. In the near future, maybe from next year or tomorrow, I'm not sure. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit from my business. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit from my business. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit from my business. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit. 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 Thus far, so far. So far. Thus far. Thus far, thus far. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit from my business. Thus far, I've yet to make any profit my business from my business. You had better reconfirm your reservation before before you arrive at the hotel or destination. You better off reconfirming your reservation. Murder cannot be allowed. I hope the number of murder case will be 0. A case of number made me scared. I hope the number of murder case will be 0. And wish for eternal peace. Everlasting peace. Lasting peace. The murderer kept silence in the court. The murderer kept silence in the court. The murderer was soon arrested by the police officers. The investigation into the mental of the murderer is underway. The investigation into the mentality of the murderer is underway. Murderer was arrested. The murderer was arrested. The murderer was sentenced to lifetime in prison for what he had done. The murderer was sentenced to lifetime in prison for what he had done. The murderer was sentenced to lifetime in prison for what he had done. The murderer was sentenced to lifetime in prison for what he had done. Murderer. Everybody in the department pitched in order to finish the task by Friday night. Me and my friends collaborated in finishing the task. Me and my friends are collaborating in creating a lodge in the garden. Me and my friends collaborated in building the lodge in the garden. Okay, I will finish speaking here. Thank you for watching. See you next time. See you.